This gentleman coming to us from the Pacific Northwest. He pilots that Royal Purple GT Radial BMW. He is all business right now. Make some noise for Dylan the Dozer Hughes.
And like neither one of them fell off the bike.
True. Oh, we're here. Hello.
So, always here with the cold start, but as always, we are back with another episode here on the Behind the Camera Show, and we got a fun guest this week. We got Dylan Hughes here. What's up, big guy?
How we doing, everybody?
Hey.
Well,
seeing people coming here and jumping in the
my
chat
only
already.
my only thing hanging up in my room.
Hey, look at that! I didn't even... It blends right in with your purple theme you got going on.
I know.
Yeah, did you do the purple just for Dylan here?
No, I didn't actually. I did it. I did it again on Tuesday because it does make me look not as pale. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other color, pink, wasn't doing you any favors, or was it orange?
It was like blue, orange. It was a mix.
He was looking a little bit Smurfish there for a little bit.
Yeah. Well.
See, that's why you got to separate the colors. See, I put the blue behind me.
There's not much you could do with a $20 webcam, dude.
Hey, mine's a $40 one. Okay.
All right.
Ooh, chill out. Fancy guy.
No.
But
again, as always, thank you, Herbie and Sara, for being here. Herbie obviously helped run the show with Brandon last Tuesday. It was, yeah. It's been a couple days, but you guys did an awesome job. Sara, it's been a week. What's going on with you?
Just cooking, dude. I got way too much stuff going on. I got way too many cars that need attention. Hanging in there.
I heard the season's starting soon. Are you ready?
Oh God. No. No. You know, with the announcement of the LZ World Tour at E-Town, it's going to be like next month.
Yep.
So,
yeah. No, it's
good luck, everybody.
I know. I like how LZ kind of dropped that huge, massive event. And it's like, oh, that's in like a month and a half.
Yeah, like, it's sick because it's only U.S. stop is at my home track, so like obviously stoked on that, but you know.
But then
it's
like, wait, how am I supposed to plan for that? You know. But yeah, Dylan. I'm sure you're in the middle of hot prep right now for a whole bunch of stuff right now, aren't you?
Yep. So what's kind of different about our program is that our 2024 deliverables end super late. So even well into the end of January, we were still doing 2024 deliverables. After FD ends, we call it trade show season. So we do the PRI show, the SEMA show, and then we go to Houston, Texas, and do the National Sales Convention with O'Reilly Auto Parts. So the car has to be together for that, and we drag it all the way out to Houston, Texas, just for this event.
Wow.
And that was only a week or two ago. So we kind of have to leave our car together for a lot longer than we would really like to. But since the car's been back for about a week now, it's in a bazillion pieces. It's over at the body shop right now. We had a ton of drama at Irwindale. So we got bent shock towers and bent rocker panels and all kinds of bent stuff. And, you know, Carlos and I, my crew chief, we talked long and hard about building another one. And to be honest with you, it just doesn't make sense because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to my race car. So I'm going to spend so much time and so much money building a new car and making it perfect. I'm going to drive it like a bitch.
Right.
And that's not how you're supposed to do an FD, right? You got to send it. And you got to be able to willing to write that bitch off at any time. So that's kind of where I'm at. We're just going to polish that turd and put it back together. And for the most part, it's kind of rinse and repeat because I think if the car has a driver behind the wheel, it's competitive. So,
but
I will say for whatever reason, I'm a lot more excited for this year than I have been in a long time. And I don't really know why. I just can't wait to get it going. And I don't know. And that's a little bit rare for me because it's just a lot of work leading up to it. I tell everybody that I only get excited when I smell the race gas at the track, but I'm fired up. I'm ready. I want to send it this year and I don't give a rat's ass about my car. So I'm just going to send it.
I feel like you need a little bit of that because I feel like you've almost been a little too nice at times. Just from the outburst, because you're so smooth, you're so technically like on point, but I just feel like you could probably just maybe nudge some people a little bit more, just
yeah, like it really, really bothers me when people hit my car and leave a big dent in the rocker panel. And I'm to the point now where it just happens every single round. So I'm just like, it's time to give some favors back. I'm gonna this year. So yeah. I got targets on anybody's rocker panel who's in front of me. So I think just coming in with a little bit different mindset of not quite so calculated and just send it a little bit more, because I am definitely like, me and my dad talk about it, my spotter, all the time. It's like we go back and watch and it's like I feel like I'm almost too smooth at some points. And it like kind of hurts because it doesn't look as wild as it could. And my chase game always needs work, but I think that's everybody in the world in the sport of pro drifting, their chase needs work. But
right. Well, it's an interesting like topic because specifically, I remember we had Matt Field on, and he talked about driving in China, and they rewarded like kind of
cutting the line and stuff.
Yeah,
as
like
long
doing
as you
weird
hit the
things,
markers,
like
it didn't really matter what you did to get there.
Right. So like they would hold angle out really long, slow down, wait to get on throttle really late, kind of mess up cars behind them. And obviously you're not supposed to do that in Formula Drift, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen, or that people in the lead don't do maybe something funky that you weren't quite expecting, or maybe they even like doing like entries. Maybe the driver will switch up entry during competition or something, and it's like, it's a fine line because obviously you want to put on the best lead possible. You want to obviously do the 100-point lead, but is there room for, hey, I'm going to hit this zone, but if I wait to the very last minute and of the very last part of that braking zone, maybe I'm able to brake harder than the other guy thinks I'm going to brake and still hit the zone and do everything properly. I'm just doing it as legally, technically as possible. Like, kind of what's your thoughts on kind of like that side of the sport? Because it is a thing, I would say.
Yeah, I think that it's a total double-edged sword because it depends on who you're going up against.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's no favoritism in the sport. I think that there is, and I've been on the receiving end of that, and I think that that's, it happens, right? Like it's just human beings, the way that we see and subtle things that the announcers say, that goes into play in regards to the people who are judging, in my opinion. So like, it feels like it just depends on who you're going against, man. Like if you go back and you look at me and James Dean's, our little incident that we had this year at Utah, they blamed me for not picking up the throttle early enough. I was clearly in the zone. He was all four tires out of the zone, front tires locked up, hit me, and they blamed it on me.
Right.
It's drifting. What are you going to do? I'm not taking it personal. I'm not here to bitch about it. Like, whatever. Another battle with James we did this year in New Jersey. It was in the Final Four. He gave me like a little bump right on inside clip number 1 right before the last turn, and it kind of threw my focus off, and I put my hand in a different spot on the wheel, and it changed my transition up, and I ran about 6 inches too deep, and I lost the battle because of that. So I think that I try to avoid anything like that. Like, I truly don't think that I have the mental capacity to be able to play tricks while you're driving. It's not, it would have to be something that was planned before you even leave the line, because I feel like everything happens so fast. My number one goal is to make it across the finish line no matter what. Right. And I think that is so deeply ingrained into my mind that I don't think that I could possibly have the mental capacity to try anything like that, right? Like, yes, you can only hit the brakes in a certain place on the racetrack, but over braking is a thing. I don't know, man. It's tough. It just depends on who you're up against.
Right. Because I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but we've had multiple drivers that we've asked, or like, who's your favorite driver to chase? And you have been an answer many times.
Yeah.
As a driver, which I mean,
which is a bummer.
Yeah.
Okay, explain.
What's that?
Elaborate a little bit. Like, are you not honored to have that title, or does that mean
it's dope? That means that we're consistent. That means that we're smooth and we're consistent and we're an easy chase is what that means. So to me, like if I'm lining up with somebody, I always have my best laps with one of the champions. I line up with Osbo or Forsberg or James or whatever. I'm like, oh, like this is homeboy. Like it's all good. I can flick this thing in at 90 miles an hour on his door because I know he's going to be online. I know he's going to be on throttle, and I know he's going to be fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it's some of those other guys where they're a little bit more of a wild card, where they're kind of not nailing the line and they might be flying off the track here or there. That's when you're like, how do you push on someone like that? If they're going to come up 10 feet short on the zone or they're going to fly off the track, how do you really push? So, you know, I mean, that is an honor, which means that we're super consistent. But like I said at the beginning, we're almost like too smooth, where it's like easy almost, you know. I gotta like fly off the track more or something. Which I do sometimes, don't get me wrong. I'm known to do that,
but yeah, everybody does a little fun.
That's really interesting to hear that.
So how did the like Irwindale and all the shenanigans that went down there, like that bad luck you had at Irwindale, do you think that affected your like F it mindset that you have now at all?
Just what, the damage to the car? And for sure. Like, dude, when I rolled, so like it was me and Trent Beecham. I was pretty shallow angle, trying not to kind of run him over. He bopped off the wall, and his back kind of came down into my front end.
Right.
And you know, big hit, whatever. I've like definitely hit shit way harder than that in that car before. And then as I like keep it out of the wall, the front end is low. I'm like, okay, the shock's probably bent, and the tire definitely doesn't have air in it. And then I look and I see there's a crack running up the windshield, and I'm like, oh shit. So like my goal is always just to get off the track. If I crash, just get off the track so practice can keep going, because I absolutely hate when somebody crashes on the track and then I'm just sitting in the car waiting for them to clean it up. So I drove it off the track, and we get back to the pit, and I pop the hood, and my strut tower brace is like reading rainbow, like straight up. Like my shock towers are like 3 inches closer together, and I'm like, oh shit, we got a long night ahead of us. Like this is bad. It was bad.
And you did have a long night. You left the track too, didn't you, to work on it?
What's up?
You guys had to leave the track to even work on it, right?
Yeah. So luckily, so I called my buddy Ayed from King's Auto Body, who straightened my car a couple times before. And I was like, bro, like I need, like, what do I do? And he's just like, I'm on my way. So he rolls from Huntington Beach. He comes out to the track. We strap one shock tower to the like the hitch of my dually, my truck. And then we strap one shock tower to my race trailer and put a porta power in between, and we took the turbo off to give us some more room, and we just started pushing and pulling and taking measurements, and we actually got it pretty close. But the reason that I left the track was because my shop is only about an hour away from Irwindale Speedway. Gotcha. So we drug it back here because I wanted to do some welding on it, because there's a thin piece of metal that connects like behind the shock tower to the shock tower, and that was fully split. Like I could put my whole hand in between there. So I wanted to kind of like massage these pieces back together and lay some bird turd welds on it, so that I had a chance of it not breaking as I go and like send it the next day. And then of course I ran into Osbo on that side. I ran into Minot on that side, and it was, I'm sure it's not even close to straight anymore, but I'm sure it moved again since we fixed it. But
yeah,
I drove to Apple Valley last week and the thing drove 6. So I'm just convinced that doesn't even matter anymore.
You're throwing some sick entries, that's for dang sure.
Yeah, super. Well, dude, we never get to try that stuff in these cars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you throw a backwards entry in FD competition, like it's a deduction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or a 0 in some circumstances. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we never really get the chance to like just go and play and have fun. And that car's pretty expensive to run, and it goes through tires fast. So we always just like to stick to our regular testing or whatever. But with that, it was like the motor was coming out, the car's getting rebuilt, it's already bent. We just wanted to get some digital assets. So it was fun and I was only out there by myself, so I couldn't run tandem with anybody. So it was fun to try and like throw some entries. It was super fun. I really enjoyed it a lot. I never practiced that at all, ever.
It looks sick.
Super fun. Thanks, dude.
And it's like, it's an interesting thing though, because we had Reese on actually, and so he wasn't judging St. Louis, but he specifically called out, you remember when Robert Thorne threw that backy in front of Chris Forsberg? Yeah. He said he wouldn't have deducted for that, which is interesting. He said
because I mean, in that specific scenario, he didn't wiggle, he didn't wobble, it didn't affect his line. Like it was sick. That's probably one of the only tracks that comes to mind immediately that you can get away with that. And he was doing it sick. It was working out for him really good. That was dope.
I'm bummer he's not driving this year, but I mean, I'm sure everyone else is probably happy he's not. But like
that dude shreds, man. Dude, he really he drives really, really good.
In Irwindale, he was the fastest car in Irwindale.
Really?
Yeah, at least from what I was told by multiple people. And
Okay.
I mean, 2 RTRs crashed behind him as well. So, like, the thing was moving. But
Well, that's like multi-sport, multi-motorsport athlete. That's got to be helping him. But so are you.
Yeah.
Do you have any other endeavors aside from going 200 miles per hour next year?
Nothing crazy. Just like the usual riding moto, riding dirt bikes. But the 200 mile an hour thing was something that we finally were able to check off of the bucket list. And that was pretty cool. I mean, it was like 14 years in the making. That came in 2010 when me and my dad went to the Bonneville Salt Flats right when I graduated high school. And we're like, we're going to come back and do this. So we did it in 21. It was rained out in 22 and 23. So we finally came back in 24 and we did a 202.243 mile an hour average over a mile. And that was one of the squirreliest things I've ever done. Like, I don't really ride sport bikes. I don't have a motorcycle I ride on the road. Like, when we showed up, I was like, all right, let's just get a couple passes and get kind of used to this. And I show up and I did 170 mile an hour average my first pass. And I was like, oh my God, that was fast. Like, what have I got myself into? Like, I'm like, all right.
Well, yeah, that's when the winds were bad too, though, right?
Yeah, the winds weren't ideal. And we were struggling with some stability and the salt had a couple of soft spots in it. And so it was squirrely. So we talked to some old bros that have been doing it forever. And they said, just keep going up in tire pressure, which was totally backwards for me because they said that they wanted a smaller contact patch on the salt. So more pounds per square inch give you better traction or better stability, which is totally ass backwards for me. Right. And I was already at the maximum PSI that the tire had written on the sidewall. So we're going to go up another 10 pounds past the maximum rated PSI on this tire. And we're just going to go to 200 on it. I'm like,
yeah, for a mile.
That alone seems squirrely, but I'm like, are the tires gonna explode? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't do this, So they're like, no, you're good. Wow. And so basically, they're like, you got to do it before 11 a.m. You have to do the long course. So that I was only getting 1 mile of run up to the time to mile, and I just didn't quite have enough time to get up to speed. Yeah. The momentum wasn't quite there. So I had 2 miles of run up to the time mile. And then the loose spot in the salt, I was just going to try and favor the right side of the course because the course is about 100 yards wide between the timing tower. So anywhere in there, you're safe. Yeah. And I was just going to try and favor the right side, and I was going to try and go over the top of the loose spot at 195 or faster, and hopefully I could just skate over the top of it. And that's what we did. We showed up it was like 7:45 a.m. I'm like sitting out there ready to go. And we pull out. I'm like, well, it's either going to happen right now or it's not going to happen. So held that thing on the throttle stop for 2 miles and dance right over the top of the loose spot. And I don't know how fast I'm going. I can't because I'm so tucked in there. I'm trying to stay in my little bubble. I have this screen in front of me. All I'm trying to see is if it's bouncing the rev limiter or not, because I wasn't fully convinced that it was even geared long enough yet again. Wow. So then we would have had to go into a custom transmission because nobody else makes sprockets for it and whatever. So I pulled down to the end, and then we're like 3 miles down at the end of this runway. And they got like a little truck out there, and this lady came up to me and wrote 202 on a piece of paper. And we're just like out in the middle of the salt flats, just us three. Right? So like I turn around and I ride 2 miles back to the pits, and then they had announced it on the thing, and we drank champagne at 8:15 a.m. It was sick.
Hell yeah, man.
I mean, and it wasn't like I have to tell you guys, it wasn't a record. The record for that class, the 1,000cc force inducted aftermarket fuel partial streamline, is like 260 something miles an hour. So like we weren't even close to the record. Yeah. But I didn't care. That's not what I started this for. I just was to do 200 and we did it. So
yeah. Well, what's it like at going that fast on a bike? Is it? I can't imagine it's confidence inspiring when you're doing it on sand and stuff like that. Like yeah. Are you just trying to focus on staying up straight? Like, is that like just the goal? Like,
don't
pretty
die.
Much. Honestly, stay on top of the bike no matter what. And learning it's going to wiggle around, it's going to wobble around. The salt isn't smooth, so the vibrations are insane. Every single bolt on the body kit on the bike was loose after that one round. We checked them all before, and every single bolt was loose, even with Permatex thread locker on. So like the whole time it's rattling. And what was really shocking to me is there's so much wind noise that I couldn't hear the engine. And granted, I'm laying on top of the engine, on top of the gas tank. Yeah. And like there's so much wind noise that you cannot hear the engine, which was like really, really surprising to me. And just the wind resistance was unbelievable. So like it's got really bad traction. So as you roll on the throttle, you just have to roll very gently because it'll spin the tire. Mm-hmm. And then at the other end, once you chop the throttle at 12,500 RPMs, it could potentially skid. So you roll on gentle and you roll off gentle. But it was amazing to me. Like once you like at one point, I'm like trying to keep it between like my markers going by.
Yeah.
And you're kind of doing like this push pull on the bars, trying to keep it straight. And I like leaned out a little bit and got my elbow out of the fairing for the slipstream.
Yeah.
And it was like somebody was like leaning on me and pushing on my elbow. Like the amount of wind at that speed is, I mean, you know, you stick your hand out the window on the freeway and it's like fighting you, you know what I mean? But you're talking almost 3 times that.
Yeah.
Like it was amazing just how like air is like, it's a thing. It's crazy. It's strong.
Yeah. You bet. That's crazy. Like, I mean, I've driven my fair share of bikes, but like, I can't imagine doing that on sand of all things. Basically,
it was heavy.
It's like
it was
cool.
It was gnarly for sure.
That's
but it was
cool.
sick. I got my stupid little coin and I didn't get a record. But I don't really care.
That's all right, dude. You broke a record for yourself.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You set the milestone all those years ago and you accomplished it. So.
Yeah, which was super cool. And I'm just, again, super thankful that Permatex was able to step up and saw the vision as much as I did and help us out. And you know, it takes money to go and do these things straight up. So I'm just super fortunate that they were able to step up and provide us with a platform to do it. So
well,
I'm
Plus
stoked.
you're
So
a part of this
hopefully,
like, exclusive club now. Like, who else can say they've gone that fast?
For a mile.
yeah, and that's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, a stock bike will do that. I'm like, first off, no, it won't. All the stock bikes that you can buy nowadays are a 300 kilometer an hour speed governed bike. So that's 184, 186 miles an hour. So no stock bike will go that fast. So if you don't have a tuner and a programmer and, you know, whatever, the bike will not do it. It might say it does on the dash, but you're not going that fast. So you have to do that. And
interesting. But like, so obviously you did this in collaboration with Permatex, and I think you're one of the few drivers to where like drifting is kind of now the way you make money. Am I wrong? Or is that?
Yeah, it is.
Which is, you're one of the few people in the world that can say that, which is pretty cool. It's got to feel pretty cool, you know.
For sure. Just, you know, as human beings though, we get used to stuff and you always want more. It's this constant progression of you always want more, right? Like if you would take a step back to where you're at and, you know, if you were 10-year-old knew what you'd be doing now, you'd be like, damn, I'm the coolest person on the planet.
Right.
But it's like anything, you get used to stuff, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I'm not thankful for it, but you do need to take a step back and humble yourself. And I like to call my what the fuck moments. You kind of just like take a step back and like just, I say this all the time, just zoom out. Just zoom out a little bit and just take a bigger picture look at what you're doing and slow down and realize that like we get paid to do this. Like this is the sickest. Like my goal when I found drifting, I was like, I want to make money doing this. This needs to be my job because I suck at everything else.
Yeah. No, and
I mean, you worked at Dirtfish.
Yeah, and that was like step number 1. It was like I was making good money doing construction, like 19 years old. And I was like, I hate this. I'm going to take a big pay cut and I'm going to go work as tractor boy at Dirtfish because I wanted to work in motorsports. And I didn't care if I made less money. I just wanted to be around motorsports. And I didn't know exactly if it was rally or drift or whatever, but the drifting bug just bit me and it bit me hard. So once I started getting into Dirtfish, then, you know, you kind of manifest things and things just happen. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's what I believe in. I do believe in, you know, manifesting, and I believe that works. And
were you always into like just extreme sports, or like when you were younger, did you race motocross back then, or were you into any like type of other divisions of motorsports?
It was just motorcycles, dirt bikes, basically. And I raced a little bit, but not a whole lot. Me and my dad just kind of did it for fun. And then I got bad grades in school, so I wasn't able to do it a lot of the time because I'm the type of person where school just didn't work for me. You know, I just couldn't sit still for long enough, and they would just like speak to the side of my head about these things that I didn't care about. And then I got my first job when I was 15. And as soon as I figured out I could make money with my time, I cared even less. So I failed all kinds of classes, barely graduated high school, but the schooling system isn't designed for people like me. You know, like if I can feel it, if I can touch it, if I can hold it, and it's something that I care about, like guess what grade I had in my shop class? I had an A+ every time. But like anything else, I just didn't care.
Right.
So I feel bad for, you know, kids coming up that are similar to me, where I can't just sit down and sit still and be told about, you know, history or math or whatever. I'm just like, it just bounces off the side of my head. You know? And I'm still like that, and that's why I'm so fortunate that I get to do what I get to do, because you know, I get to be good at like playing around with cars and building shit. It's actually pretty ironic that I like a lot of the stuff that I do with roll cages and fabrication requires a lot of math. Like I think my math teacher would be proud, but it just needs to be applied in a way that makes sense for each individual person.
100%. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So yeah, no, I guess like how old were you when you were riding dirt bikes back then? I guess like just high school or younger.
Yeah, I started when I was like 5 or 6. So like I've been on it, like riding around in the yard every day. Like my parents knew I was home from school because I'd throw my backpack up on the porch and they'd hear the motorcycle start, and I'd ride around the yard every single day.
What was then your first drift event that you had ever been to, even just as a spectator, if it wasn't?
I think that my first ever FD event was probably Formula Drift Seattle 2011, probably 10, 11 maybe. Okay. And one of my buddies was like, "Oh yeah, there's this drift event." I'm like, "What? This is like a thing? Like people do this?" Like I had no idea. And so we go out there, and I remember I actually have a photo of me standing next to Chris Forsberg's car. Little did I know I would be working on that car and competing with that car later on. But I just thought it was so cool. I had never seen anything like it. I was like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever seen." And walking through the pits and talking to all the it's very accessible. As like I thought it would be like NASCAR where you can't get near anything.
Yeah. I mean, because even then they had the VIP tickets too. It's like, damn, I need a VIP to go in the pit. But then all of a sudden, you could just go. I think at the time it was like $20 for a ticket for the whole weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. You see somebody walking by in a driver's suit, and you're just like, "Whoa, is this dude drives? So like he must have an orange car. Like he's wearing the orange suit. Like sweet." I'm like, "What's up, dude?" And you like go and chat with them. Like it's cool. And that's what I still love about drifting is. People get to do that like now,
Yeah, it's so cool. And that you bring up Chris Forsberg because it's an interesting. You went getting into FD a very interesting way by crewing and getting your experience that way. And I feel like that's a huge benefit for a lot of people that even let's say they want to run Pro-Am and they want to make it into FD. How valuable is it to have that kind of experience, though, of working on a team in FD before you actually make the jump too?
Well, for me, it was the right path because it was the only path, right? Like I wasn't able to just like buy all these bazillions of dollars in parts and go drifting. You know what I mean? So it was learning the tricks of the trade. It was learning car setup. It was learning about the tires, learning about driving. I remember staying up late all the time just watching Chris Forsberg's onboard. I would watch his onboard religiously all the time, and I would like see where his hands are and all this different stuff. And then we would go to the track, and I get my ass chewed out by his crew chief Scott Davidson at the time for leaving a bolt loose or something. You know what I mean? It taught you discipline, and it taught you about car setup and shocks and what it takes to run a team. And I mean, I don't think it would have been possible for me without it, because I need to learn all these things hands-on. I'm a hands-on guy, so I had to be there for it. Right. So working on his team was one of the best things ever. And then obviously Chris is a super good dude, and he would help me out as much as he possibly could, whether it be like giving me his old scrub tires or help me out with parts or introducing me to sponsors, or, like he like took me under his wing 100%. And I'm forever grateful for him for that, for sure.
That's awesome. And obviously it ended up working out for you. You cut your teeth obviously in Pro 2 and pretty much wiped the floor when you jumped in. But before you got to Pro 2, how did you get so good at driving? Was it just a natural fit, or was there a local track that you were just,
So originally, I don't even think I drove. I might have driven on a track once or twice before I moved to the East Coast to work on Forsberg's program with the MN Motorsports guys in Maryland. I think the first time I ever drove on a track was Pat Saker's. I already had a V8 240 at the time, but I did a bunch of street drifting because I was up in Washington State where it rained all the time.
Yep.
So I could go out and I could go and slide around. It didn't cost me a bunch of money because, you didn't burn up a bunch of tires when you're just like on a mountain road when it's wet. And then I kind of like was able to figure it out. Okay. And then I started hanging out with Chris, and then I brought my 240 to the East Coast. And what do you got there?
Sorry, my cat is just fucking up everything. as he does. Continue. V8 240. You have me on the edge of my seat.
So V8 240 brought it out to E-Town. The thing was like a champagne. It was like the ugliest car I've ever seen in my life. And started driving at Club Loose with the boys. like right in like the best time to be involved in it. Like, like those times were so much fun with the Nat and all the Bloodmasters and Forsberg and Turk and everybody. So really, it was like I really started taking drifting serious when I was on the East Coast and we were driving at E-Town. And I was able to go and drive with Forsberg and Turk and Chris Stapps and all these legendary drivers. And I'm just little old me. I like barely have any track time. So it was kind of like, hey, you're like not good enough to chase, but like we're going to put you out front. Like, don't mess up or like we're all going to crash into you and we're all going to hate you. I'm just like, okay. Like,
that's when I first learned about MA was genuinely like I didn't really know about them. I was still new to like FD or like just all of it. Like the first FD event I went to was 2012, but then when you're, you know, just all black, you know, or gray S13, that's when you painted it all that one color. And I was like, damn, that thing is just clean. And just the MA Motorsport, just sticker, just that's it, just clean as all day.
It was ugly for a long time, and that paint job was a long time coming. And took it to a place called Hughes Auto Body in Maryland. They like gave me a super good deal on just blasting it, and I was like, I want this. It was actually a Chrysler color. It was like a color that I always thought was cool off of like a full-size Dodge pickup truck. I was like, it's like a sparkle gray. I'm like, that's the sickest color ever. I'm painting my 240 that. And it turned out so sick. And that was when we were running the Sylvia hood with the regular bumper. So it kind of had like that like cat eye look. Like it was, I think it was cool.
Yeah, that was tough.
Well, speaking of the old chassis, it came back to life.
Dude, it did. I can't believe it. I was so stoked to hear that he brought that thing back. But yeah, he's out there running ProSpec in it.
That's it's weird because it looks a lot like your car, like the way you had it set up, like the kit and everything. Like it looks
like the rear bumper cutout thing was like the same. And like, dude, I like open the door and I like look in it and it's like full blown, like getting hit in the face by like flashbacks. It's crazy. A bunch of the batteries in the back is the same, and some of the tube front stuff is the same. And like that was the first roll cage I ever did by myself.
Really?
Yeah, so when I heard that the dude Brad Davis had crashed it, I was like, whoa, like that's, you know, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And he texted me and was like, yo, like you saved my life. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He like sent me a photo of the car and it's like full blown banana.
Wow.
But yeah, 240 lives on, man. I'd love to see it. And he's driving good too. He's driving really good.
Yeah, that was his first year, right? This past year?
I think so. Yeah, and he actually, I believe his name's Jace, right?
Jace,
Yeah, and he's actually gone the same. He's going the same route where like the NA nitrous route. I think were you just NA or were you nitrous in Pro 2?
We were, when Travis and I were the whole time in Pro 2, it was NA, and then the last round of the last year, which would have been 2018, when Travis and I were going back and forth on the championship. We both put nitrous on our cars for Irwindale, and both of us just sucked. Like it was like the window wasn't set up right, so it was like it felt sick down the straightaway, but then once you're on the bank, it would fall out of the nitrous window, and like we were both on stock ECUs, and like it was chaos. Travis ended up winning the championship, rightfully so. I think he was driving really good, and I got second. But if I would have beat Crick Philippi, I would have won the championship. But Travis didn't qualify. I crashed my car. Took parts off of Travis's car, put them on my car. So I had version 1 WiseFab on one side, version 2 on the other side. And I had to go out and run it like that. And Crick beat it straight up. So I didn't get the championship.
That's crazy. You know, and I remember that because like you two had very similar cars, which was the cool thing. Is like you guys were both
really similar,
going ham in the championship, but like it was like you guys had the same car. And so it was really cool to kind of watch because you were like weren't a team, but you almost were a team at the time.
Yeah, we kind of were. And honestly, Travis and I met at Formula Drift Seattle probably 2016 or 17.
Wow,
and it was almost like a very, very like childish version of like Biggie and Tupac, you know? It was like I was like won a championship Pro-Am on the East Coast and he won the championship on the West Coast. Yeah. And like we heard of each other, so we like meet and we're like hanging out in Turk's Pit or something, the Nameless Pit or whatever. And so we're always like, oh, like we kind of were like eyeballing each other. I'm just like, oh, I'm Dylan. He's like, I'm Travis. I'm like, and then we like instantly hit it off and like we've been bros forever. And I
realize that you guys are like the same type of person.
Very similar taste in cars and everything. He likes red, I don't, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did stick with the V8 to be fair.
Yeah, he did. He did. But then even when we graduated from the S chassis, he built the E46. A guy that used to shoot for Larry Chen named Leaf gave me that car, Travis's FD car, before obviously it was Travis's FD car.
Wow.
He's like, yo, I don't want this thing. It's an E46 chassis. I just had it up on top of the container at Chris Forsberg's shop. And then Travis is like, oh, I want to build an E46 because I had built mine. And I was like, bro, I have this one. I'm literally not going to do anything with it. I was like, again, same thing that happened to me when I bought my car. I was like, if you promise to turn it into a pro drift car, you can have it. So he drove down from Washington, Vancouver, and he picked the car up and turned it into his FD car.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, and it's a beautiful car too, but obviously yours, you went a different route. And I kind of want to talk about the transition from, obviously, you did amazing in Pro 2. I mean, you looked at home in the car, apart from Irwindale. We won't talk about that. But in terms of making a big switch, not only was it a big chassis switch, but it was also a turbo switch. So what was it like switching from the S chassis to the BMW, and then obviously the different power plant styles?
So really the initial switch came when I got the deal to go and step up into pro and drive the Huddy Racing E46.
That's right. I forgot about that. And there's actually a question in the chat about that.
Yeah,
so you want to quick tell us the story of your side of the Huddy Racing thing?
Yeah.
Because that's a thing in its of itself. I forgot about this.
Yeah, I forgot about it too, to be honest with you. No. So basically, it was like I was just planning on running another season of Pro 2, try and win a championship, just keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
And an opportunity arose. I had just met my now business partner, Kinnan, and he had a driver and something ended up happening with him and the car needed a bunch of work. And so he basically hit me up and was like, hey, there's a chance if you want to step up into pro, because I had my license because I just done second place in Pro 2. Mm-hmm. He's like, if you want to step up into pro, let's do it. You got a lot of work to do on the car, but we can make it happen. And I was like, I'm 100%. In. So we started building this car, and I didn't know if I would like it. I really had no idea. And we built the car over a crazy series of events. We got it done, and I went and drove it. Dialed. I loved it. I was like, okay, sweet. And that's when I really fell in love with the BMW chassis. Just the simplicity of the suspension, McPherson strut, front rack, rear trailing arm. It's just wicked simple. They make a lot of grip. They're easy to work on. They're cheap. There's just a lot of benefits to the chassis. And when I jumped in it, I felt right at home. Like there was really no adjustment period at all, that I could explain. So jumped in that thing. That was a crazy shit show of a season. Putty did some weird shit. And then halfway through the season, I basically was like, I need to build, this car is sick. I need to build my own car. So halfway through the season, I had a conversation with Aaron Eusebi, the photographer. I shot that on Instagram. He's like, oh, my mom's got an E46 for sale. So I went out and looked at it, and the car was immaculate. She bought it brand new in 2005 and had mom driven it for its entire life. It had 200,000 miles on it. Wow. But it had a big crease right above the rear tire and the fender. But we cover that stuff up anyway. I cut it out, so I don't care. Yeah. Out there, I lay on the ground. The subframe is perfectly clean, no cracks, no nothing. So same thing. Give me $1,000 for it as long as you promise to turn it into a pro drift car. Sick. Wow. $1,000 cash, put a battery in it, drove it back to the shop. Then 7 months and about $100,000 in parts later, I had my current competition car. And during this time, I started hanging out with Rad Dan a bunch because we had moved to California.
Yes, the 2J Whisper. Okay.
Yep. Since the partnership with MM Motorsports and Chris Forsberg, they split ways. Forsberg and I moved to California, and I was hanging out with Rad Dan a lot. And Dan had the sickest spot out front of his shop where we could just rip burnouts all the time. It was in ghetto Santa Ana. Yeah. And we could just go out there and rip skids all the time. And he let me drive his practice car, Baby Blue. And after that, I was like, I'll never, this is the sickest. It just reminded me of a two-stroke dirt bike. Just something about the power band and clapping the limiter and everything like that was just so cool to me. And at the time, the engines were super cheap. They made a lot of power. It wasn't a $60,000 V8, which seems like it's just cookie cutter nowadays. Mm-hmm. It's just cool, man. I just love the power band. I just love that power on the top. It's what I always wish my V8 had a little bit more of. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to build the E46 and I'm going Jay-Z. Fuck it, right? and that's that. And now I don't even have a V8 anymore. All my cars are turbo inline six.
Yeah, no. And
diesel. Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
that's the closest thing.
We can get into that wagon here in a sec, but the 2J car, the 2J platform has become Rad Dan, I think, has been a huge part in pushing that platform. But I think it's interesting to compare and contrast how different engines and people like they handle. So do you run like a nitrous with obviously the turbo setup and everything to kind of help with the torque that you would get from like a V8?
Exactly. And that's the only thing that a JZ kind of lacks is that torque, right? It's kind of lazy until the turbo is on, so it's kind of tough to drive. You kind of got to like work the clutch a bit, which is super fun unless you're in like a competition setting where every inch between the car counts.
Right.
You want to be able to left foot brake and just kind of use that nitrous window just to keep the turbo lit. So we spray it just to add the torque, and then it shuts off at a little bit below target boost pressure. And
that's cool.
It's just for torque, and it's sick. And it's no, like I tell everybody, it's no like Fast and the Furious switch anymore. It's like, you know, you arm it, you activate it, you have bottle pressure, you have your RPM, and you have your throttle percentage. And once all those different criteria are met in the Link ECU, it hits. And it's like, cool. It makes an extra 350 pounds of torque at 4,500 with the nitrous on versus without it. So it's like,
wow,
it's like
shockingly
noticeable.
That's cool. I mean, because
super cool.
And it's interesting to kind of see how the different cars even handled like driving. Like I feel like even though you and Travis have very similar cars, I feel like when he was driving in Pro, I feel like he still drove differently than you because of the engine setup. I don't know. Maybe it was just how you guys drove in general, but it is interesting. Like I feel like Dan drives, or like JZ guys tend to drive differently, I feel like, than a lot of V8 cars, but I don't know. That's just what I've seen driving throughout. But you actually have one of the most unique drift builds that I've seen for a minute in this diesel-powered wagon. So do you want to explain the process on how you would even make that thing work? Like, where do you even start? You know, like where did the conversation start from? Be like, oh, I'm gonna build a wagon, okay, but what's the engine? Then you pick a diesel. Like, how do you even get to that to like make it a drift car?
Yeah, so we were having conversations with Royal Purple, our title sponsor, and it was like, well, we want to do something diesel, like we want to show off their performance diesel line of oil. So we were like, okay, like it'd be sick to do a diesel drift car, and I already had my E46 and then my E36 Grid Life car at the time, so I had two two-door cars, and we were like, okay, well, like it'd be sick to do a four-seater ride-along car. So the natural choice was to do a four-door, you know, E46, because I already have a bunch of parts and everything for it, and I'm familiar with the chassis. And we're like, well, let's just do something dumb like a wagon, just because they look sick.
Right.
And then I'm always like clickety-clacking on YouTube, looking up different engines and being a nerd.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, got obsessed with these like Mercedes-Benz, like Luke Dale diesel pump UK engines. And it just so happened that right around that time, Purple was like, hey, we want to do something diesel. And I was like, sick. Wagon, four-seater, 4 bucket seats, diesel engine. And that was kind of the vision. And they were like, sick, let's do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. So same thing. It was like a Facebook marketplace, you know, $800 piece of crap car that was sitting out in the desert somewhere. Me and Kenan went and bought it. Obviously, like not running in any regard. Like it was a total pile of junk. Drug it on the trailer with a winch, and same thing. Brought it back to the shop, and $100,000 in parts. And 6 months later, you got another car.
What does that thing rev to?
I think it's like right about 5,000, 5,500.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean that's decent for a diesel.
It's decent for a diesel for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't have that engine as probably fine-tuned in and as dialed in as we probably could.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I don't know if you guys saw, I posted a YouTube video announcing that we were gonna take that engine out and we were gonna put a JZ in it, which seems a little bit cookie cutter and a little bit lame, and I get that. I'm like, dog, have you ever driven a big turbo JZ? There's nothing. They're so good. They're so fun to drive. Clap the limiter. They make 800 horsepower from now to the end of time. They're so simple to work on. I have so many parts for them.
It's weird. I didn't know Rad Dan came on the show today. You know. But I mean, you drifted that thing in Japan, right?
Yeah. So the car spent 6 months in Japan last year. We took it over for the RSR Drift Festival. We drove it at Suzuka Twin Circuit. Like legendary, like total bucket list like thing, right? So It was Matt, Odie, Osbo, and myself were the 4 selected U.S. drivers. We sent the car over there. It was gone for a long time. The problem with it is that it kind of like runs out of steam up top. And I tried a couple different turbos on it, and I couldn't really find a power band that I was happy with. And the other thing is, even with like some of the sickest cooling components on it, like PWR radiator, it gets biblically hot, like instantly. Like if you roll that thing on the track just at normal operating temperature, within like 20 seconds of drifting it, it's at like 260 degree, like water and oil temp, like instantly.
Wow.
And I have the best radiator that you could possibly put in it.
Yeah.
A car that, you know, a radiator that I run 1,000 of the wheels in my JZ, and it's out of tires before that thing's too hot, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So it gets hot. It doesn't really make the power that I want. It seems like right when boost comes on, it kind of runs out of RPM. There's been dudes online like, oh, you got to compound turbo it. You got to make it rev harder. And I talked to the Black Smoke Racing guys, and they were like, you need to own a 648. Like that's the engine. And at the time, I didn't really know that engine even existed.
Oh, yeah.
But that one requires, you know, proper electronics, a link ECU, and a standalone harness, and all kinds of stuff, which is fine. But that's what was so cool about this OM606 is that it was so mechanical. Like there's no throttle body, there's no ECU. It's like if you take like the inlet hose into the pump and dip it in like a jug of diesel fuel and you put power to the starter, like it'll run. Like no intake, no off manifold, it'll just run. So simplicity was the key for that one. And I'm just ready for something else. Like I just want to go 4 deep down the corkscrew at 100 miles an hour and just never worry about, you know, never worry about the engine, and just you know, I want to drift it at 100. And the diesel is fine for doing like little parking lot demos, but like I want to drift it at 100, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Right?
Once you do it once, it's like, man, I want to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Dude, and we've been so spoiled over the past couple of years, like with Grid Life. Like we get to drive the sickest tracks on the planet. Like if you would have told me that I'd be drifting down the corkscrew at Laguna Seca a couple of years ago, like it is the most epic experience. And like once you, like every time when you're in Grid Life, you pull onto the track, you don't pull off the track until your tires are gone or your motor's too hot.
Yep.
And that is so polar opposite from FD. Like in FD, you like do a lap. Okay, you're not happy with it ever, no matter what.
Yep.
And then you go and you sit back in line and you talk about it, and someone crashes, and then you sit in line for another 45 minutes. And then by the time you line up to the line, you're like, what do we do? What do we do again? Like, are we even drifting? I'm just like sitting here being hot. You know what I mean? Like, so sitting on ass time is like polar opposites, you know?
100%.
In Grid Life, you like stumble out of the hotel in the morning, jump in the car, and just go drift the whole track at 100 until your tires are gone.
Yeah. Did you
ever?
ever?
You get so spoiled doing that.
Did you ever make Grid Life South before, like beforehand?
Which one's that?
The Grid Life South, like the Atlanta.
No, that was before my time.
Okay,
no.
So you never.
Like, why aren't you doing Grid Life? I'm like, I can't afford it. It's too much. Like my program just wasn't there at the time. So once that program came to be, that already kind of fizzled away. So we're stoked for that this year, and we just had a meeting about it today, and we're gonna drive the FD car a little bit for full course drifting there. So we're going to drag another car all the way out, and we're just like, nope, we'll drive the FD car.
I was curious how FD is going to go about that. I haven't heard a whole lot on it yet. So
Same.
Like, as long as they're cool with it, you know, like I guess I don't know why they wouldn't be cool with it.
Yeah,
but,
I think scheduling is the thing that I'm the most worried about. I feel like it's either going to have to be all on Sunday or all in the morning or all at night, which isn't that great for our FD weekend schedule, but we're willing to make it work. And I think it's such a cool idea that like we're down. So we'll just drive the FD car.
The fans that'll be there and everything.
Yeah, 25 miles out there from Cali, you know.
100%.
Yeah.
And I see everyone in the chat. I'll get to some of these questions in a minute here, but there's one more point I wanted to hit. And something that I've been really impressed with just watching over the years has been the way that you're able to speak, I guess is the word. You know, the way, obviously you do commercials left and right to obviously pay for everything you do.
Sell out. Let's go.
But you do. So
this is what we're saying in a way. Like,
but as like, someone that interviews drivers all the time, you're probably one of the most well-spoken when it comes, or one of the best at being well-spoken about whatever you're talking about. Even like on the spot, when I just come over and, hey, let's go do a video for Link or something, like you're on the spot, you're ready to go, ready to rock. You know, it's like, so how, obviously you said you weren't great at school, but like where did the knowledge about how to speak about products, how to speak about even your program? Because obviously you do halfway decent at selling the program to where you're like paying for things now. You know, like that doesn't just come out of nowhere. Obviously, that comes with a lot of hard work, but I'm sure that also comes with a little bit of skill in speaking and marketing yourself.
Yeah, man. I don't know where it really. I feel like a switch got flipped somewhere, because I remember like my very first deal, we did like a little truck shoot with Forsberg. I don't even remember who it was for, but we did like brake pads and everything. It was my first time like really being on camera and having to like nail the lines and talk about the products and everything. And I sucked so bad at it. I remember just being like, "Is it hot in here? Like it feels really hot in here." Like all of a sudden, and like my face is all red, and I'm messing it up, and I'm speaking too fast or too slow or whatever.
Yeah.
And once I realized that it's like, just slow down, take a breath, and I just pretend like I'm just talking to somebody. Right. It's easy just to, I don't know, you're just talking about drifting. It's right. Kind of easy, and like we just, and that's why I love to work with sponsors like Royal Purple and Permatex, because I truly believe in their products. So it honestly makes it easy. It's like, yo, here's what I use it for. Here's why I like it. And this is why I use it. And it works great for me. And everyone's like, "Oh, you don't run purple oil in your engine?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do. Like, it's the shit, straight up." And like, I believe in it because I'm so hard on equipment and engines and everything. The fact that like we can consistently have a JZ that lasts at 1,000 of the wheels with nitrous all the way through an FD season, and then take it out to Adams last week and go beat on it for no reason. Like, I'm a fan of the product, and that makes it easy. But I don't know, man. I think just slow down and, just kind of like see what comes out, right? Like sometimes like just reading a script is tough. I kind of just like try and get the bullet points, and then it's kind of like driving. If you break down every single millisecond of the lap, I have to do this, and this to get around the track. There's 50 different things that you can mess up. If you focus on all 50 different things, the chances of you messing up one of those things are pretty high, statistically speaking. Mm-hmm. So if your goal is just to get in the car and make it to the first turn, that's only one thing you can mess up. As long as you don't mess that up, you're pretty much good. So you kind of like, it's like that Will Ferrell thing in the movie Old School. You just black out and you just do it.
Yeah.
Dead serious. It's like driving. Like my dad, how'd that lap feel? I'm like, I don't know. Like you black out and you just do it. I don't know. It's kind of like a flow state thing. It's like like when you're riding a dirt bike, you're just in a groove. You're not thinking. You're just existing and doing what you're doing. And that kind of reminds me of that with drifting. It's hard to get in that flow state because you don't have enough time in the car, right? You got to get in that flow state in 30 seconds. But for as far as like talking on camera, you just look at your bullet points and ramble and see what comes out. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like you're very. We've had that conversation before together where I've said to you that you're just true. Like even if you are reading bullet points, you still give your own personality. Like you're not afraid to hide. That's like truly who you are.
Yeah,
that's how I feel like that the difference truly is. Like you're not just like a NASCAR suit and tie, like just like reading off a script. Like you do put your body energy into it, and like then if it is just unscripted and you gotta just do something off the dome real quick, it's just like you said that like you do care about the things that you have to promote. So
sure, and just like anything, like I was talking about, as human beings, we get used to stuff. You just get used to it. You just, if you care about it and you want to be good at it, think about it. I'm a big firm believer in just thinking about it. Like if I'm laying in bed and I remember like I said earlier, watching Chris Forsberg's onboard, I would just be like my eyes closed, laying in bed at night thinking about it. And I'm a true believer that if you think about it and you put effort towards it, you'll probably be good at it. So it was just something that it was like, my racing is going to go nowhere if I don't figure this out. So like, let's figure this out, right?
100%. Do you do the two tap handbrake touch before you take off too, just like he does every time? It's like
I can't say that I do that. I got my own little thing that I do, but I find myself starting to get what do they call it? Like superstitious.
Yeah.
Squash that shit immediately. Like, oh, this underwear, like this pair of socks.
Can't use that rim anymore. It's cracked. Yeah.
I'm like, nope, I'm not doing any of that. I'm gonna squash that right now. So I find myself like leaning that way. I'm like, nope. Come on, let's bring it back. That stuff doesn't matter. At least cool. I tell myself that. I don't know if it does or not. But
all right, well, let's hit some of these chat questions. Some of these guys have been waiting. Some of them are more fun than others, but Mike Bruning asks Dylan how his water was at SEMA. I don't know. It must be an inside.
Oh, how
joke.
was your Fiji water at SEMA? He had asked.
Oh yeah, bomb. My man. He came by and he hooked me up with a fresh Fiji water bottle. Dude was balling out on me on water. I was stoked. Thank you, bro. Hydration's key.
Especially in Vegas in that desert, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you got some chapstick.
Definitely.
What's up?
So make sure you got some chapstick.
Yep.
I'm not used to it. Okay.
Sorry for dragging you out to Houston. That was Steve from Royal Purple.
What'd you say?
Hey man, it's part of the deal. It's all good.
Malik asked, have you guys done like a top speed test or a drag race with the FD cars at all?
We haven't. That's something that would probably be pretty cool to do. I think like horsepower wise, that car would easily do over 200. I'd just be worried about the body panels just flying off. Cartwheeling off in the woods, to be honest with you. Like those cars just aren't really meant to go that kind of speed. So I feel like if we spent a lot of time, like really bolted the panels down, maybe did tape in the seams and all kinds of stuff, that bitch would do 200 for sure.
I don't know if you were around for the days of drag your drift car at E-Town, but they would have like, I don't know, Friday night testing where you would get to like go drag your drift car. Oh my God, it was not made for that.
It was pretty
7
funny.
degrees negative camber, toe out in the front, just sketchy as all
It was so bad.
Yeah. I've done that at Irwindale before with FD over COVID. We did like a thing like that, and it was fun just to do it. But I was like, this is not for this at all.
Everything's starting to rattle at a certain speed. It's like,
oh my God. It starts to swell up, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, and then that's if you didn't break anything off the line,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
It's funny how that happens. Where like, oh yeah, it's 1,000 horsepower axles, and then not anymore.
Good old fashioned sticky tire sidestep on a prepped surface.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, right.
It's crazy. Alex Jager was in there saying Dylan's trying to talk me into nitrous right now.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, nitrous is always the answer. It's scary at first, but once you get used to it and you have your formula and you got a good tuner and you got a good ECU and all that stuff, like it's the sauce, bro. You can never go back. It's the best.
What's your opinion on the old nitrous purge on the line? Like, I know it's necessary, but it's kind of also a little bit of a flex.
It's definitely a flex, especially when you're in those super humid climates like St. Louis and it just shoots like a white cloud, like 50 feet in the air, you know what I mean? And some people do it because they want to have their bottle pressure at a certain number. And when it's super hot, the pressure expands. So you kind of have to bleed some of that off so that your tune is right through the engine. We run 2 bottle heaters on mine, and then sometimes if we have to, we'll put some ice on it because I try not, because that's essentially wasting nitrous. I try not to waste it.
Yeah.
But it definitely looks sick.
That's
a good way to tell if your line is actually purged too. That's another thing, because if you put a new bottle in the car and your line isn't purged, you could potentially have a moment where if you go to throttle, you're like, mine's a dry shot, so the injectors compensate for the extra fuel that it needs. So basically your car could hiccup before the nitrous would make it through the line and make it to your engine, because it would make your car way too rich, so it would essentially like bog or hiccup or something. So
gotcha.
I always like purge it a couple times, make sure I can see white, so I know that my whole line is filled and I know that nitrous is ready to go, like right there, ready to go. So you see people like dumping it out, they're just purging that extra pressure out of it.
Gotcha.
It's sick.
Yeah, Malik asks, and I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this, but he said, are there any aspects of motocross competition that you would like to see in drifting? It's a different one that I didn't think about. I was like,
You know, the point, the racing aspect of it is always admirable to me, because it's in drifting, it's my opinion versus yours. So it's incredibly subjective, and that can be incredibly frustrating.
Right.
Because it's essentially somebody else's opinion dictating on your weekend. Whereas in like motocross, it's like cut and dry.
Right.
The first fool that crosses the line wins, period. Right. Unless there's some technicality or whatever. But the subjectiveness of drifting can be incredibly frustrating. And I find myself, it's hard to watch.
So talking about the subjectiveness of drifting, so when you go to sponsors, are you talking, hey, our goal is to finish at this point in the season or this point in the standings, or is that not even a conversation because of that?
It depends on the sponsor. Every sponsor wants something a little bit different, but as far as our title sponsors like Permatex and Royal Purple, it's kind of a bonus.
Okay.
Obviously we always want podiums. The better you do, the better, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Makes the brand look better and all that, but that isn't written into our contract where it's like, if I don't podium, they're going to yank the rug out from underneath me.
Right.
That's not really how our deals work, at least.
Right.
Some people definitely want it a lot more than others, but I think that's what's cool about social media these days is you can kind of rely on that. And as long as you're doing your job and posting and doing product videos for them and making sure you're on top of deliverables, then everybody's happy because they need somebody, a spokesperson for their products.
Yep.
And like I said, winning's great, but it isn't an absolute necessity for most guys.
100%.
Yeah.
Brandon, our other host here, he's like, that cardboard cutout in the back is pretty sick.
Yeah.
Is that when you knew you made it? You're like, I got a cardboard cutout of me.
Dude, I saw that for the first time and I was like, this is weird. This is
Always bringing it over. Heck yeah.
I mean, it's pretty good on the height too. Like they got it almost perfect. I mean, it's pretty good.
Oh gosh.
This
guy. God. That's the guy that sometimes might make a little travel to the bathroom to freak some people out.
Dude, honestly, I'm glad you said that because we had to take it out. It was in our bathroom, so like we almost killed the UPS guy one time. He comes in here, he's like, "Yo, can I hit the restroom?" We're like, "Yeah, bro, you're good." And we had this dude just posted up in there. So he was in there around the corner, and that thing is just standing there, and like this dude screamed for his life. I thought he was gonna hit the ground. So we were like, you know what? Maybe we got to take that out of the bathroom. I don't know why it was in the bathroom. It just ended up there as a joke, and we just left it.
That's amazing.
Almost killed a couple people, so we're like, all right, we gotta like bring Homie back. And the reason that we even have this is because we did a Royal Purple spot on their Snow to Sea. It's their oil for snowmobiles and for like watercraft. So we bought a snowmobile, and we were like getting some digital assets for them. And I was kitted in this absolute beauty the whole time. So.
Amazing.
That's why we have that.
That's a nice fit.
Yeah.
Malik asks, how has been the switch to FDF been?
The switch to FDF, the switch has been seamless, to be honest with you. I love their products. I love Josiah's a drift guy. He's a drift nerd.
Yep.
And I don't mean that in any sort of negative tense. Like I think he builds really good parts. And at the end of the day, like you can straight hit shit with his kit and it doesn't break. So the biggest difference is dual shear tie rod pickup, dual shear lower pickup. I prefer their Ackerman adjustment over other brands because I think it's stronger. I like the fact that it's a fully fabricated aftermarket knuckle because you don't have to go and find factory parts or buy them off eBay. And then maybe it was in a wrecked car, so the knuckle's bent.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. So I prefer the fabricated knuckle piece. Their lollipops are super strong. Their tie rod setup is sick, easy to swap it out if you bend it. But like, dude, I'm telling you, like you can hit stuff and nothing really bends. It's good stuff. And it drives fantastic. I like it. That match with the MCS shocks.
Yeah. See, you see why companies work with this guy? He just rattles it off. Just boom, 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 boom. You know.
Yeah, it's all like very accurate.
I think about this stuff. I'm just like, why do I like this, or do I like this, and why do I like this? And it's like, okay, here's why. Straight up.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. Like, if I didn't like it, I would say so. But like, I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, you drive smooth, and like you said, you're gonna try to spice it up a little bit this year going forward.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to see it.
Yeah.
Malik had also asked, what was your biggest challenge when you did jump from Pro 2 to Pro?
Just the tire. The tire is a whole nother ball game, and I think that I can speak for a lot of the ProSpec guys who moved up. The big tire is a whole different ball game, and you don't see an insane speed jump from the ProSpec cars to the Pro cars, but that extra like 5% makes the car a lot more different to drive, and it reacts different, and there's less wiggle room, and you basically set the car up so it's terrible to drive because that's how fast it has to be, right? Like as a driver, like we kind of want to loosen the car up a little bit so it's a little easier to drive and it floats and you can be more smooth, but you're just going to get walked if that's the case. So I think until some sort of tire size rule comes into effect, our cars are just going to keep getting faster and faster, I think.
100%.
But the big tires definitely, and then just the level of, you're against the OGs, the Forsbergs, the Osmos, the James Deans, the Matts and Odis, and dude, everybody shreds. Like I tell people this, the top 32 is the worst battle of the night by far. It doesn't matter how far you make it in the event because everybody's good. It doesn't matter who you have in the top 32, like your chances of making it through are like
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't find that flow state. It's your first battle. You've been out of the car for 3 hours. You know what I mean? You go back after a lunch break. You get back in the car and you haven't driven, and they're just like, all right, send it. And you don't really get a chance to find that flow until you make it through a couple battles. And then after that, you're like, all right, let's do this,
Celine Drift asks, and I'm before I ask his question, I'm going to ask you, what is the most common question you get in the pits? And I think this is the question that he's asking, but I'm curious what your most common question is.
How do I get into drifting?
Oh, really? Okay. So what I thought you were going to say is, what's the lifespan on a set of tires?
Oh yeah, that's probably number 2. Yeah, 2 laps. Dude. 2 laps.
Yeah. It's like
the fronts, as long as you don't flat spot them too much, will last all weekend. But the rears are 2 laps and they are smoked.
Yeah.
You swap your fronts out after each round?
After each round, and sometimes if I flat spot one real bad, we'll put another one on. But usually we can fairly easily make it through the weekend on 4 to 6 fronts. Wow. And then the tires that I start the next round with will be the ones that I ended with the previous round, and then on Friday I get new ones, and then it kind of just leapfrogs.
Got you. Yeah. All right.
Alex Yeager's literally answered the question. He's like, we usually get about 40 seconds of drifting time on a set of tires, which is typically around 2 laps.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Isn't that nuts?
40 seconds, man. There goes. What are the tires retail again? They're like, are they $200 a piece?
I think so.
Jeez. Yeah, $400. Just buy.
Yeah. Who was it that had something about the cheater tires?
Oh,
is what they call them in parentheses.
Yeah, thoughts on cheater tires, but I don't know. He doesn't use them, so I don't know if you wouldn't have any thoughts on it. So it's like,
well, what is them?
Well, he's talking like Bolinos and stuff. It's like, but they don't use them in the competitions over here. So
yeah, we don't use them over here, and a lot of the European drivers that I talk to about them are like, it just basically makes your car setup go completely out the window. It's just no matter which way your tires are pointed, whether it's aligned right or whatever, your car's just fast, no matter what. So I think it takes some of the setup out of it, but to be honest with you, I haven't driven on the real gnarly sticky ones. The GTs is a fantastic tire, and I love it.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I've heard is I've talked to a bunch of different drivers, even drivers that aren't on GTs, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. And it's the cool thing. So we talked to Matt about this. Actually, this brings up an interesting question. So you actually were on Team Falcon for a year, correct?
Yeah.
Before everything happened. So you were the new guy.
I was the new guy, yep. And in 2022, I was the only one on the Falcon team to get a win, which was my first and only win, which was at FD Orlando 2022.
Yep, I remember that.
And I was ready to sign a 5-year deal with them. I just thought that the Falcon brand was so legendary, and when I first got into drifting, the 615K was the tire. It's what all the local pro-am dudes were on those. All the pro drivers that were my idols were on those. So when we got to talking to him and it was a possibility, I was like, okay, this could be really sick. I want it to be a really long-term thing. And then it wasn't at all.
It's crazy. So obviously we've gotten a couple of different of the guys, Odie and Matt, and their sides of the story. Kind of bring me back to the day that you got the news. What happened?
Yeah. So basically we had all but signed a contract.
Yeah.
And, we're going back and forth with the guys, and I was on my way to Winter Jam which is at Sonoma Raceway in like 5 days before Christmas. And this was the end of 2022. And they just called me, and I was like, we're pretty tight with the Falcon dude. So it was like me and my crew chief Carlos in the car. So we like bop it onto my truck, and we're like, what up? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And instantly he was like, yo, bro, like, take me off speaker. And I was like, what? I was like, uh-oh. I was like, what did I do? Did I like, I don't know. I was thinking I did something wrong. Like, I'm just like, oh, did I tag him wrong? Did I, I don't know. I didn't know. And I was like, well, dog, honestly, like, whatever you tell me, I'm going to tell Carlos. So I was like, let's hear it, And he was like, bro, we're out. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, we're out. Like, I just got the call. We like need to save a bunch of money. Like, we're out. And I was like, oh shit. This was the end of December, which ideally you would have like many months before that, before you started having to look for a tire company. So hung up, called Mike from GT. I'm like, hey Mike, what's up, man? He was like, oh, what's up, man? Like, he had just gotten off the phone with Odie and Matt, and and I'm just like, I kind of had to come back with my tail between my legs, and luckily we left on a good note. I didn't burn the bridge when I left. I respect the brand, and I love the tires, and the Falcon thing was just kind of like a long time goal for me. So I thought I was going to be on it for years and years to come. And not to say GT was my second choice, but I wanted to do the Falcon deal. I just thought it would be a very long-term. I thought it was going to be a wise decision moving forward long-term. And that's what I'm always trying to do, is try and find something long-term.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's that iconic brand. It's got
for sure.
colors behind it.
I'm not saying that GT isn't.
Yeah.
But to me, where I grew up and the timing that I was in and all that. So
I can still picture their tread pattern. Like, for a media nerd to know a tire's tread pattern is like,
legendary, right? Legendary.
Yeah.
Them and Achilles. I still remember the Achilles tire very well.
Yeah. Same.
I remember the smell.
Yeah, that's a good tire too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I called Mike and I was like, yo, dude, like, I know, like, I bailed on you guys last year, and I'm, like, if we can figure something out, I'd be incredibly grateful. And luckily they brought me back, and I've been super happy being on the team, because they take care of us, man. They make a really good tire, and we get to go out there and we take some of their employees for rides every year in South Carolina, where the tires are made. Yep. And it's just a really, really cool company to work with. And I love that their tires are made in the States. The ones that we run have made in the USA on them. I think that's really cool. They got a state-of-the-art facility in South Carolina. We met some really cool people through them, and they just treat us good, man. It's a fantastic brand, and I'm really thankful that I was able to come back, and I plan on being with them until they don't want me.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, that place is sick, and Mike is cool.
Yeah, dude. Everybody that I've met there is good people.
Yeah, yep. And they kind of like help save FD. Having like running ProSpec with all of those cars on those tires, and it's like that's a serious operation. I mean, they're changing over 1,000 tires in a weekend.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the logistics and the nightmare behind figuring all that out and making sure that like, it's not just like, oh, you like press go on a set of tires. Like, there's tooling changes, and there's like, I've seen their facility. It is acres upon acres of inside of like making tires. Like, it's molds are incredibly expensive, and to be able to make that amount of tires that quickly, it's pretty impressive, honestly. And they made that 255 mold for Formula Drift.
Wow,
crazy to me. Super cool.
Yeah, they crank them out there. It is. I went to that one the first year that they did it with you guys.
Yeah,
and that was, I couldn't believe it, dude.
I mean, legendary.
Like just seeing the big machines and how many, and just going through the rows and all the workers and how automated it also was. I was like, damn.
Yeah, they're not messing around.
Yeah, I was like, this is sick.
That's real business stuff. Like, a lot of combos going on there. Pretty cool.
For sure. We got Sean had asked, how is going back to FDF, how's the communication with FDF versus other companies that you had worked with in the past?
Positive for me, much more positive, and Josiah being a racer himself, he understands what we need to do our job, right? So when I hit him up, I'm just like, yo, dude, like when I first switched off, I was like, I have 3 cars. Like, I want them on all my cars. So it's like the upfront amount of parts that need to come along with that is a pretty major investment. So, a full kit plus spares for 3 cars, you know what I mean? That's a lot. So I think the investment was definitely a little bit higher at the beginning, but Josiah understands what it takes to do what we do because he's a pro drifter, right? So he understands it, he gets it, and I just try and wave the flag as hard as I can because I'm a believer in the product.
100%. Yep. One other thing that I thought of that I wanted to ask was you probably change wraps as much as I think anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Is that like, hey, like Royal Purple's like, hey, like we don't want to sponsor the car if the event's on like a third Friday or of the month or something like that. Like, can we have someone else do those events or something? Like, what's the conversation like? Because obviously they are rebranded for each time of event.
Yes.
So
it depends geographically speaking which sponsor wants what round. So we have 2 title. We're pretty unique where we have 2 title sponsors. So we have Royal Purple and Permatex. Yeah. Royal Purple is our biggest sponsor. So we run 6 rounds with fully titled Royal Purple, and we run 2 rounds of FD as a Permatex branded car. And then we run my practice car at the Grid Life rounds as a Permatex branded car. So at the beginning of the year, we basically sit down with both of them, and this is where having a business partner, my partner Kenan, handles a lot of this stuff. Where everybody's got to play nice, and we have to pick and choose who wants what, and triage which events they want versus what they want. Yeah. And ideally, we would just wrap the car purple, run 6 rounds in a row, wrap the car blue Permatex, and then run 2 rounds in a row. But it doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. Sponsors want specific rounds based on
geography and stuff like that.
Geography, right?
Sales and certain things.
They're based out of all this different stuff. So usually we end up wrapping the car 4 or 5 times throughout the year, but it's an added cost for doing business for us. Where it's worth it to we got to play nice. We got to make everybody happy. Mm-hmm. So it's worth it, and it's the way that we can maximize how much money we get.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of my questions is, and like just observations, is that you guys maintain one of the cleanest chassis on grid at all times. You like Carlos, I know, like props to that man.
Get him some milk.
What are some of the struggles?
It helps with the clean driving that he does too, though.
It's true.
Yeah,
it definitely is.
I love my cars looking clean. I love them looking nice, and Carlos shares that passion because when he started working for me, I obsessed over my car for a long time, making it clean and making it exactly the way that I want, and he shares that same obsession. So we complement each other nice in that regard, and doing the wraps all the time definitely helps because we peel it off and do it all the time, right? So if there's like door marks or scuff marks, or we carry extra bumpers and we carry extra pieces, but definitely redoing the wraps definitely helps with that. But it definitely helps having an OCD crew chief. And
what's some of the struggles with having such a high standard and that OCD for yourself after each round? I mean, I wouldn't even say after each round; it's after each practice session.
Yeah,
they're in there cleaning the thing out.
It's shocking how much rubber gets all over those cars. Like it's everywhere. So vacuum comes out, and people always say, "Man, how do you keep your car so clean?" It's like you wipe the sumbitch down all the time, under the hood, on the bottom, inside and out, all the time. Like if there's an oil leak, you fix it.
And I think one of the strongest things that I remember Carlos saying in one of his story posts the one time was like as he's cleaning under your car after one of the rounds, and it was gnarly after just one round. And he's like, "Do you think a sponsor wants to see that? Hell no." He's like, dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
Straight up. If you got half your body panels hanging off, or your bumpers folding under, your fenders are flying off. Like a bumper flying off in a drift car is the most tacky thing I think of all time.
Yeah,
I agree.
It bothers me. So, I mean, you just got to dress to impress. Like you said, it's just, nobody's going to want to sponsor a zip tied together piece of junk. You know what I mean? So we just take it pretty serious. But I think it shows. Our cars usually look pretty dang good unless we just crashed it. Like, right?
Yeah,
which happens.
Even then, it's like, damn, this thing still looks pretty clean.
Yeah. You call it turd, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Good from afar, far from good.
Exactly. As long as it looks good going by at a hundo.
That's right.
There you go. Malik Scott here, and I kind of want to add on to his question. He said, your builds are praised for fabrication quality. What is your favorite thing to fabricate? And I also want to know what your opinion is on something like cage kits now.
My favorite thing to fabricate, I'm a sucker for some good stainless steel work. I love doing exhaust. I love doing wastegate dump tubes. I love doing intercooler pipes, aluminum, titanium exhaust we have on the comp car. Anything that involves TIG welding, I like it really nice and clean. And I've never TIG welded a roll cage in a car, and I don't think I ever will, because if you got it in the wrist, you can make the MIG weld look pretty nice as well. So
Right.
I haven't done a whole lot of cage work as of lately because of the I haven't been building any new cars as of lately. But as far as cage kits, I think that it's a really, really cool piece of technology that's available to anybody now, right? Like you can get a really safe, good fitting cage from Rob, and it'll show up on a pallet. You can burn that thing together with.
I just think it helps with the affordability for making your car safe.
For sure.
Now I'm a bad example because I don't have a cage in my car yet, but in terms of bringing your car to that next level, that was a serious expense. It
was thousands every time, right? Yeah. And it was, you had to trust somebody, and because a cage isn't something that you're like, oh, I don't like it, I'm just going to cut it out.
Right.
It doesn't. It's like a one and done type scenario.
Right.
You gotta,
yeah. And it's like
you do it once and you do it right is the way that I look at it.
Exactly. Right. And the other thing too is you got to obviously rip everything out of the car to do it.
Yeah, that's where it's as the page turns to it's sort of a street car. It's damn, roll cage. It's a race car now, right?
Yeah, because
it's loud, it's annoying, it's not fun to drive on the street anymore. It's
100%. Let's see. There was some other stuff.
Carlos is in the chat. What's up, Carlos, buddy? Miss you. Don't look. That means he's not working.
We love his little series that he does in the stories. Those are so I watched the one he did on your clutch 3 times. It's
on episode of Who Gives a Fuck.
Are you out there, Carlos? Come and kick it. He's got his own little series that is incredibly unfiltered and brutally honest, and that's why we love this dude.
Yeah.
See, love.
What's up, buddy?
Legend.
Hello. I've been watching. I'm supposed to be working, but I'm not working.
Yeah, I heard. Hey, I heard
so what's the worst? What's the thing you hate most about Dylan's car?
The thing I hate the most. I mean, I don't think there is anything.
I was going to say, I'm very curious what you say.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's something that I hate.
If we hated something, we would change it.
We would change it. Yeah. It's funny. The other day, what was it? Dylan built that rocket stove. I don't know if you guys seen that. Spent a day or two building that thing at least. And Chelsea DeNovo was out here after Irwindale, and he's talking shit. He's like, "Oh, next time I see a bracket that's Jimmy rigged on your car, I'm gonna tell you you wasted all this time on the rocket stove, but not on the car." And then Rad Dan, not even us, he's like, "You're not gonna find one of those brackets on our car." And it's yeah, you're not.
Hell no, dude. Take all this seamless, clean, light, strong. Yeah, we nerd out on that shit. I mean, but that's the cool part about this is our full-time job.
Right.
There's actually 4 of us as of the beginning of this year that work full-time on this program. So Carlos and I are super hands-on on the cars. Kenan manages the business side of it with the sponsors, maintaining relationships, and then we brought on somebody else as of recently, which we won't get into that just yet.
Awesome.
But
secret.
Yeah, I mean, so we can just spend the time and nerd out on shit because this is what we do. So we're incredibly fortunate for that. So yeah.
Speaking of that, is there any new technology or anything that's even come out in the last year or two that you think is going to be really big in the future of drifting?
I mean, the ECU technology is definitely on the up and up. I mean, they're already so good, but the little changes that continue to get them to get better on the electronic side get me stoked. Stuff like the electronic wastegate really intrigues us. Something that we could potentially switch over to. We're waiting to get a little bit more testing done on it for other people doing the testing for us, but that could be something that could be really cool. But nothing too crazy that I really think of besides those.
Yeah, I think so. The G5, the GPS integrated into the ECU is awesome because for us, we weren't pulling the logs I pull are through all old school. Usually you have GPS, but we don't have that. So I'm just looking at okay, he shifted into 4th gear. All right, he's on the bank now, and then you just kind of trace it out, and with the GPS and the map that helps a ton. So
100%.
That's huge, and you know, Link isn't paying us to say this; we're just saying it because it's the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't help that I do work with them quite a bit, but it's like
we're super stoked on stuff like that. It's so Radium, that's another one that I love too. Like they listen, man. Like you say something and you're like, oh, you know, it'd be really cool if this went this way, and then JP like next week is like, check this out, you know, like we did it. Nice. And it's really cool that drifting has that impact on companies, right? Because like we've always been that like black sheep bastard child on the side that like everyone thinks we're like, I mean, I want to say scum, but like they don't think we're like anything, you know. And then you start seeing these teams that are like bringing in like real budgets, and they can't help but listen to us, you know.
Right, major automotive manufacturers backing team, you know, Toyota.
Dude,
and Ford.
Like how big is that Ford Mustang right now that Vaughn's doing for the sport? Like I feel like that's huge. For
next
like
level. I mean, that dude, like we're gonna be talking about that dude 40 years from now. He's the next Carroll Shelby. That's only ever been done one time ever, and he's a drift dude. RTR Mustang. It's crazy. It is truly shocking where the sport has, like, you can't deny drifting anymore, and if you do, you're just wrong.
Yeah,
dude.
100%.
Amen. That being said, like, how much does it break your heart that BMW like refuses to get involved, even though they have drifting in every one of their commercials? It sets me off, so I get all hot and bothered about
They're
it.
bringing the Goodwood Festival, like
I'm with you. I wish and I hope and I pray that I could be the guy if that is a thing. You know,
what would be your pitch? What's your pitch? Give me your pitch to BMW on like why would BMW want to be involved?
All I got to do is pull up their commercials, like Sara said. That's all you have to do. It's like, you know that this is what's the coolest looking. You know this is what everybody wants to do.
You have drift mode in your new cars. Drift mode.
Like I don't even have to pitch anything. I'm like, you guys already know it's the shit. Just like pay us to like make it more of the shit, you know?
Right.
I will say though, I'm gonna play devil's advocate with this because like as a crew chief, like we have like if we had BMW backing of any kind, like we'd have to have a BMW engine, and then like, oh well, you can't run this partner because like that's not the oil we run, and blah blah blah. Like so from my standpoint, like I kind of like that we don't have that. Because there's like even another. I bring up Chelsea again because I spoke with him not that long ago, and like I know he wishes he was in our chassis, like because it's just like we don't have that restriction of like, oh, you got to run this engine, you got to run this chassis, like, oh, this is the new 2025 like BMW fucking minivan, and now you got to run that. And so we're really lucky that we don't have to do any of that. And but that's just me, you know, as a crew chief. But as a like for the longevity of the sport, I can see why that would matter. But I'm gonna milk this as long as I can before BMW comes knocking, you know.
Yeah.
If I get an email, I'm gonna delete that shit. I'm like, I don't know, BMW didn't hit me up.
Well, it is interesting because Malik literally asked in the chat, have you looked into B58, S58 platforms and, you know, like other stuff? When like you bring up like a Link G5, for example, like I know like Adam's kind of working down at Drift HQ on some B58 stuff, like opening up new engine platforms with the direct injection stuff. And like, that's still probably years away, but like it is an interesting, kind of like how you did your diesel. You're like, oh, it's a really cool engine platform to try in this car. I'm just curious if you ever thought about trying some different engine platforms that even are a newer engine per se.
Yeah, I thought about it, and it just comes down to a cost thing. Like at the end of the day, I can go on Facebook Marketplace right now and I can buy a GE and NA 2JZ block and crankshaft that's good for well over 1,000 horsepower for like sub $500.
Wow.
Right? Like if you wanted to do like 1,000 horsepower JZ on the cheap, yes, you need the electronics. Yes, you need the turbos and the manifolds, the injectors and all. It's not cheap, but it's substantially cheaper than doing a B58. If you want a B58 right now, you have to buy a car with one in it, or you need to hit up Toyota/BMW, and they're going to be like, cool, it's 16 grand for a stock motor, and then you got to throw all the shit away that you don't want on it, make a custom manifold like Papadakis did on both sides of the engine, intake and exhaust. It's just not quite there yet. I think it's a fantastic engine. I've never worked on one personally. It's just not there yet as far as aftermarket support.
Right.
The JZ is the JZ. Like everybody runs it for a reason.
100%. And I think like a lot of this stuff's just going to be coming with time. Like, I think with technology changing, and as you said, like even with the ECU side of like different things open up, and I'm curious to see in 5 years what it's going to be like. Because we brought this up to Rad Dan, and I was like, Dan, the 2J's been out for a minute, but he's like, yeah, but you can still buy a block from Toyota. So like, as of right now, there's not really any reason to switch off because you can still get them. It's not like they're being not made anymore. You know, like same with LSs, like they're still being made. So it's not like we're gonna run out of them anytime soon, which is cool. You know,
which is super cool. Like I said, we got a Toyota dealer down the street. I could call him up and be like, hey, I want a short block. You can get a GTE, forged rods and pistons, 1,000 horsepower capable crank, brand new block for like a couple of grand. You can buy a brand new cylinder head from them. Like that stuff is so cool to me.
I think one other thing to add is like people forget like we compete, like it's competition above all else. So like we can't have like this like, oh, I'm testing a new engine and like how do you explain to Royal Purple like, oh, you know what, our engine blew up second lap of practice. Like they're like, I don't care. Like that car needs to be on track. So the JZ works. It's been proven. We're not pioneering anything, but then we're also not getting paid to do that. You look at guys like Papadakis, it's like those guys, they get blocks direct for free, you know, because they're getting paid to progress that side of things, which I can appreciate. It's like, maybe we'll have this conversation 5-6 years down the road where it's like, this is what works. And now you can compete with it reliably, you know?
Right.
I think it's interesting. Like one other thing I don't even remember who I was talking to about, but like an LS hasn't won a Formula Drift championship since 2011. And that was Dai Yoshihara. And it's like, if you start to think of things that way, you're just like, oh shit. Like, you know, and then Jay-Z is like, not really either. I mean, James got 3 in a row, like, you know, but then it's like, you look at V8 and this shit or the other, but like, it's all about reliability. And I'm not saying LSs aren't reliable. I've worked with them plenty, and I think they can be reliable, but they're still constantly pushing the envelope. And the block is aftermarket, the head's aftermarket. Like these foundries aren't together. Whereas us, it's like the block and the head were made in the same foundry. They're machined by the same people, and we just put random shit inside of them that works really well. So that is like I think a huge thing as to why the JZ is so reliable and why. You just have to look at the data of like past times, and you're just like, we're competing. Like I get it. Guys are like, they get caught up in like, oh, it would be really cool if you ran this engine or the other. And it's like, yeah, that's why we have the diesel wagon, or that's why we have the M50 and the E36, because we're not obligated to do certain things. But for us, we have to show up and we have to have a car that works, you know? So that's the key to it. And the JZ's proven that it can do it time and time again.
Without a pro drift car, you can't go pro drifting. Yeah. If your car breaks, you're just a dude standing there, right?
Yep.
Which seems obvious, but like when you say it like that, you're like, whoa, like reliability above anything else.
100%. Yeah.
Write that down.
Phil brings up an interesting question, and this all started kind of with Stookie, I think, last year, but he asked, any thoughts on running a 255 tire in pro with a lightweight car? Obviously, like, you'd have to build a new car probably to try and do it, but like, your thoughts on even like that type of a idea?
I think that Carlos and I had pondered that long and hard. We had many conversations about it. And we talked about even just bringing my practice car E36 to certain rounds. I don't think it would be ideal for rounds where tire wear is something that we have to worry about. Long Beach, absolutely. St. Louis, probably.
Yeah. Jersey for sure.
Irwindale, no way. Seattle, no way. Just because you need that extra diameter in tire because it's physically more rubber. Your tires are going to last long.
Yeah.
It's something that we kicked around the idea long and hard, and we didn't feel like it was worth it enough for us to continue exploring it. But we always use that car as a backup, just in case I crash the FD car too bad we can't bring it back. Sweet, I'll throw a drive shaft hoop in it, and we'll just probably put a bigger turbo on it, and we'll just crank it up and see what it's got. So that's kind of our plan B, plan C, you know.
But it is an interesting idea, like to.
Oh, for sure. I think it's a dope idea, and like his car was like on pace and was fast, and you know what I mean. Like I think there's something to it for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, and I know like Odie's, like you guys have kind of batted around the idea of possibly trying to do something. So I am curious to see if more people go down that route, especially like drivers with lower budgets. Like to me, it makes a lot of sense. If you're able to build a car, but then like, you know, you're still on a budget, like just component wise, you're going to be a little bit easier on components and stuff like that.
Right. You're carrying less weight. It's less shock on the drivetrain, you know, for stuff like that. So I get it 100%.
Phil also asked, and this kind of goes back to quick our cheater tire discussion. He says, do you think it's easier to be competitive in Drift Masters since the tire makes up for the lack of setup?
No, I don't think any pro drifting is easy or easier than another. It's just depends on the time, depends on the day, depends on the track. You know, like you go out and what was the round not too long ago where James like spun in one of his rounds? You know, he was telling me that there's like 6 different surface changes in the one turn, and then it rained, and I don't think any of it's easier than another. I think it's all gnarly, and it just depends on the day.
100%.
Oh, what's your least favorite track to drive?
St. Louis.
That's easy.
Oh, he guessed it. That was Booty for Pirates.
Before or after the wall move, or both?
Doesn't matter.
The first year was cool when it was like a high-speed track.
Yeah.
And it had a sleeper, that was sick.
Like the old St. Louis layout was epic. Like we ran that when we were in Pro 2, and it was rowdy. Like, dude, it took me like 4 laps to even link the track. And I was nervous because I was like, oh my God, I don't even know if my car will do this, you know, because the link was so fast. Like you had to nail it absolutely perfect, or 500 to the wheels wasn't enough power.
Yeah.
That layout was sick. It was fast. It was cool. You know, we saw Denofa do the big gangster backy like that during qualifying. That was sick. But St. Louis, it ain't it. And then especially the changes that they did to the track last year is double ain't it.
Yeah. I don't know why. We've got. I don't know if there's a bunch of BMW haters in this chat, but we've had multiple questions asked about if you could build another chassis. Could you build another one? Brandon just asked, "What's the next chassis after the E46?" He said, "Can't be another E46." I'm like, "What's wrong with E46s, man?"
Why not?
I'd go E36 then.
Do you have any love for like the E92s or?
I think the E92s, I don't love the way, I mean, they look cool as like a street car, you know what I mean? But as far as like a full-blown race car, I'm like, they're cool for sure, but I'd probably go something like 1 Series if I had to switch.
Okay.
I think that the rear geometry is I think it's good rear geometry, but it's tough to work on. I mean, you look at the Papadakis team, and those dudes can swap a motor in 40 minutes, but like those dudes will miss a 5-minute call by trying to change the rear suspension. So I think once something gets bent, it breaks everything, rips the brake line out, the whole, it destroys everything. So, and that's where we go back to reliability. Like the E46 and E36 chassis are so simple. There's 3 arms in the back of that car. There's a trailing arm, an upper and a lower, and a shock. That's it, right? Yeah. And you can ask me, like, you can hit shit, like, for sure.
Yeah, with that FDF there.
That's right. Yeah. Remember when they lined the St. Louis track with those little, like, thingies around the last turn, the things on the ground?
Oh, yeah.
You guys remember that? It wasn't this year, it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I dipped a tire. I, like, barely touched the tire, and it, like, ripped the sidewall of the tire from this thing that they bolted to the track. And then I, like, hit the dirt, and it sprayed dirt everywhere. And somebody told me it broke a window in the stands when I did that. And like the car basically was like the front end, like after it dug into the dirt, it was like both front tires were off the ground.
Yeah.
Not a single thing in the back of the car was bent. Somehow, could not believe it. One of the hardest hits I've ever felt in that car, and nothing even moved. It didn't even barely knock the toe out.
You were the one that ripped up the rumble strip? I forgot.
Yeah,
nice. Hell yeah, brother.
Too.
Somebody's got to do it.
Name another car that can do that. Like it didn't hurt anything. Like imagine a multi-link 240 or something. Like the whole corner would be smoked.
Yeah, except it's just not. If you hit another BMW, it's not quite BMW proof, you know.
Yeah, right. Something's got to give. And that's where the
Trampachoni is.
Yeah, the rocker panel and the shock tower get sent to Flavor Town. In a good way.
That's funny. Oh, where was that question? I saw another one. And I already forgot what it was.
How long did it take you to learn how to weld so well? Celine drifted as.
Oh, dog, like. I don't know. How old am I?
Trial and error, yeah. I don't even know how old you are. I always just consider.
I turned 33 on Monday.
Wow. Happy almost birthday.
Was he
belated?
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry. Go out on a limb here and say it's just like you said before. It's reps. So like talking on camera, drifting, welding, all the same thing. It's like you're gonna suck at it at some point. If you do enough reps, you might not suck eventually.
It's the 10,000 hour rule. You know, I don't know if that's the number, but you know, it's seat time. You know what I mean? Seat time with the hood down, whether it be welding or drifting, whatever. But I really started taking welding serious in probably 2000, I would say 13, 14. Yeah. I was working with a guy at Dirtfish Rally School who was like an insanely talented fabricator. He built the sickest rally cars and the coolest shit I've ever seen. And he was a MIG ninja. That dude was so good at it. And same thing, I'd lay in bed at night and like think about like how to like for different ways squirt, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't even think that TIG welding was even a necessity until I moved to MA Motorsports and started working on Forsberg's cars and with MA Motorsports full time. I was just purely a MIG guy. I was like, TIG welding, you don't need it. As long as you know what you're doing with a MIG welder, you're good. And there might be some truth to that, but I love me some TIG welding. And I really started, they had a really, really nice machine over there. So I was like, all right, now's the time. I'll like dive into this. And I remember actually the day that I like a switch flipped and I figured out TIG welding. On Forsberg's KA240, he had like a little hood dump exhaust on it. Yep. And he's like, yo, will you burn this out after work? I was like, because I wanted to practice. And I was like, yeah, I'm down. But like, what if it looks like shit? And I'm nervous and yada, yada, yada. So I remember like sweaty palms, like over there on the bench trying to make this look as good as possible because I knew everybody's going to be judging me or him for it. And I just remember like figuring out like move, stop, dip, move, stop, dip, move, stop, dip. And once I found that like little like motion for me, boom, it just started flowing. And then I kind of like built off that and then started learning aluminum. And I mean, it's easily over a 10-year process, but I was like okay at it after doing it like often for like a year or so. But you're always learning, you know, you could always be better.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider you definitely in the top 5 of welders in the motorsport now, for sure.
Thanks, dog. I appreciate that.
Yeah, which it's just like
it's really honestly.
It's crazy though, because I know that like in a way it is like your full-time job in a way, but you're not constantly fabricating. You're spinning wrenches, doing other things, and then but it's like, but secretly I'm also a pro at this.
Yeah, you know, and I think that comes around full circle to the nerding out on your car and making it how I want it, and I want it perfect. So, you know what I mean? That's why Carlos and I work well together, because we both have attention to detail.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I was like, I don't know.
Well, you gotta ask. Did you start the street bike up the other day when you were rolling it? Or
I did. Yeah, I was just talking about it. I have a motorcycle, but like I don't identify as a motorcycle guy because those guys are goons. But I started riding my motorcycle from time to time.
The South Park episode type style.
Yeah, no, seriously.
I'm sorry, Seabear, we love you.
Yeah, exception, but everyone else can go fuck themselves. But anyway, no. So I rode it, and I was like, it was like in a slope. So I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna turn it on, whatever. And then, but then I had to take a turn, so I'm like, fuck it, I'm turning it on. So I turn it on, and the fairings are like, it's all like fucking. That's why, like,
dude, I cut the handlebars like 2 inches shorter on either side to try and like stay inside of the fairing. Yeah. So like when your hand is on the throttle, the grip goes to like here, like your pinky's just hanging off the end of the bar.
Oh,
and
wow.
when you turn it, like your knuckles will hit the fairing for the arrow.
Yeah. Yep.
It's sketchy, and the thing has like literally they make you put a steering stop on it. So like full lock is like this way and like that way. It has like 10 degrees of steering angle total.
And then like these mitts compared to his cute hands, you know, like I just like it got stuck on the steering. I'm like looking like Donatello from the Ninja Turtles.
And then just Dylan in the background. Don't do it, Carlos. Don't do it.
Yeah, that shit. Yeah, it was fuck riding that bike. That's for sure. That's
understandably so. Yeah, it's sketchy.
Yeah. It was like Archie the Bear, basically, from Dr. Dolittle.
That's awesome. We got another question from Malik here. Any new drivers you're excited to drive with this season? And I actually kind of want to ask like the question that we've asked other drivers is like, do you have a favorite driver that you like to drive with in FD that you find easiest?
Not necessarily like a person, but I find myself being more stoked to line up with some dudes. Like when you do line up next to them, you're like, oh, sick. Like, all right, like, you know, just like what we talked about a little bit earlier, somebody that you trust, Turk, Forsberg, Matt, Odie, James, you know, Osbo, all those guys are always super fun to drive with because you can send it and you know they're going to be dialed.
100%.
So, as far as like one particular person, I always used to love to drive with Trav just because it's Trav.
Yeah.
But
100%.
you know, anytime you drive with one of the boys on the track, it's cool.
We just had Chris Knapp on Tuesday, and him and we were reminiscing about how a video that lives rent-free in my head at all times or any time of the day is the video of you and Travis jumping that little go-kart in the parking lot of E-Town and just casing the front end after you hit that little kicker, dude.
Shout out to Pete for renting the funmobiles for us to abuse.
That was
still some good times on the property, man. That is one of the truly the greatest places on earth. That place is lawless. Chris and Michael Knapp and Chris Knapp, that's a fantastic family. They're good people.
They definitely it earned its hashtag. That's for sure. The greatest place on earth. Yeah.
Talk about a playground, dude. I'd be there all day, every day.
Yeah, there's something to do for anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, even now you could bring your doohickey there, your little backpack doohickey, and land on the airfield.
My little flying machine.
That'd be awesome.
We did have a question from Brandy Hatfield that I'm kind of curious about. I don't really know if they really mean this literally, but if you had to challenge a game of table, which I'm guessing that they mean drifting game of table,
right?
With anyone in Daily Driver Media, who would it be?
What is it? Game of table? What is that?
Come on. I think game of table?
I feel like that you did it once at E-Town, but like where you you take off, and you say as close as you can.
What?
Who would I want?
Of us then? Us three?
I guess. Or Brandon too.
Okay, or Brandon. Well, I mean, so of all of you guys, you and Brandon drive sim, and then I drift in real life. I know Nate drifts in real life a little bit.
Yeah. What?
If it helps, I'm gonna kill the table. There's no shot I'm not finesse.
I'm going with Sara.
What's up?
I'm giving you a run for your money, dog. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you would. People talent from nowhere. I know.
Yeah, I LS240, so I got about as much finesse as a hammer. You know, we're just full throttle. We're good.
Honesty points. I love it. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
What are your thoughts then on, like, you don't own a sim? Why?
Time.
The only thing, maybe I should take this one because
let's see what he's got to say about it, and I'll tell you what I think.
So he goes through these like this. And so like we'll come out of one of the events, and then he'll be like, "I need a sim." Then it's like, "Okay, if I'm not happy with my driving, I fucking need a sim," you know. And then so he goes on this like little rampage for like 30 minutes, and then he's just like, "So much shit, like I don't know what to order."
And then I drive somebody's, you know, I go over to Kegel Spot or whatever. I go and drive somebody's. I'm like, I absolutely hate this. Like in the game, I love that. I think it's so cool for people to be able to practice and learn. But I've never, and I've said this from the beginning, I've never driven a sim that's anywhere even close to my race car. And the day that I can get on that thing and feel like it feels even remotely close to my race car, I'll buy one and I'll be on it every day. Yeah. But I learned from driving Forsbergs quite a bit. I learned some bad habits from it that I didn't like.
I mean, even me messing around with his, and I even tried to fix up Kegel's. I'm no pro at dialing that shit in, but and I'll tell you right now, you're not wrong that they're not 1-to-1. At least I would hope that isn't what you're feeling in real life. I'm like, yo, this is a little crazy, and then when you let the wheel go on like a straight, it snaps. It's like, holy cow.
You know that when you like let go of the wheel, like if I'm in anywhere on the track, I let go of the wheel, boom, 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 that car is going straight in 1 second. You just let go of the wheel, you're out of trouble. In a sim, it seems to like compound and multiply, and it does all this weird stuff. You got to clutch in on transitions in some cars, or you like have to be wide open. You can't really tell how much angle you're at. It's all based on the wheel. You don't have the G-forces. It's just not close enough for me.
With these like pre-built companies now, like, you know, Brandon has Boundless Racing, Drift HQ, Sim HQ now, like those types of things where they do turnkey, like pre-built at your door. They come to your place and help set you up, so that way it's like a true 1-to-1 situation. Would that like intrigue you more? So that way it would, one, take away the hassle of like, for your instance, like you're a hands-on physical mechanic guy, not a full-blown nerd, but like a nerd with car stuff, but then you got like, you know, your computer guy that could come in and like just dial you in, know the correct like FOV for like you to like actually be fully immersed, no oscillation, things like that. Would that like intrigue you more?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. And I'll be the first to admit I'm fairly tech-tarded. I don't do computers well.
It's fine.
You know, I can't reach inside the computer and touch it. You know what I mean? All these settings, all these different layers.
I want to touch everything, you know?
So I think, and honestly, like for people that start on a sim and go to drifting, they just boom, they pick it up so fast. So obviously it translates, and I've talked to a couple different guys about it, a couple different like legendary drifters about it, and it's like for those of us that started drifting first, going over to that is like,
it's so hard.
It's weird.
Well, you're doing something that you've done your whole life, and you're doing it professionally, and then when you go over to the sim, you're now a rookie again. You're now learning how to do it again, and it's got to be frustrating because you're like, I'm not this bad, I swear.
I asked the car to do this. Boom, I know that it should do this, and it doesn't do that. I'm like, I don't want to do this if it's not what I know it's going to do. You know, it doesn't drive like a car. But
I think there's two things behind it. I think that one, like no butt dyno. There, you don't have your butt dyno anymore, so you can't feel anything. And then two, I think the idea of like, even though like we know it's a tool, I think even when I first started using it, it's like it's a video game. Like in the back of our heads, like why do I need to try this hard for a video game? I'm just trying to have a good time. I know drifting ain't that hard, like hard, that bad, but like. I don't know. I think that those are some of the two biggest things that it's hard for someone in your position that absolutely rips and you throw the keys to you for any chassis that's rear wheel drive or probably even front wheel drive and still figure out how to skid around Apple Valley. And, you know, but, you know, you get on a sim and you take those things away, improper setup, all those types of things. So
yeah, well,
it's disheartening.
It'll be interesting to see where technology goes with this. Like how, because like for example, there's a new version of VDC cars apparently that are like the pro car versions. You know, like VDC is like the pro comp side, and there's like a new version that's supposed to be more realistic. I don't know personally. I'm curious to see when people get like I think like Novak for example is a guy that drives a lot of sim stuff, and you know getting more feedback from people like that to kind of make them a little bit more really realistic. Brandon, the other guy we bring on as like a host as well, he has his own business where he sets up sims for people, so it's like
that intrigues me a lot. Having somebody who I can just be like, it needs this, you know what I mean? Because I'm not the guy to be going digging through the settings and figuring that stuff out.
Well, I can put you in contact, or somebody can put you in contact with. He's a good guy. I know him. He's in the chat, but it's like
he did. He just said tech-tarded is a new one with the laughing emojis.
but like yeah, like he races competition, you know. So it's like, but he also sets up stuff. He helped me set up. So for example, I have an EcoBoost E36. That I drive, and it's like 300 horse, you know, like 300 torque, kind of like something like that. But the lower horsepower cars, at least the basic ones that I've driven, when I hopped in the sim, I was able to pick it up in like a night, like linking
on
tracks
the lower
and stuff.
Cars, for sure.
Yeah, because I was like, this is a lot like my car, and then Brandon was able to put settings in my wheel that helped drastically, and I changed everything in the settings. I just copied what he told me to change, but we changed everything. So like there is no way I could have done that by myself. I needed someone to come in, and I'm an Apple person, so like you have to do this on a PC. So I didn't know how to do anything. I was lost I was in my own little world. But like, so like that was something really cool that I found. I was like, oh, this isn't once he like helps set me up with the basics of like, hey, this is what your wheel's supposed to feel like and stuff like that. Even like neck effects where the head moves to where you want to look, kind of thing. Like trying to make it. He did a really good job at that kind of stuff. So it's like I think, and Matt Field, for example, is like starting to get into doing some of the sim stuff, and like you can see like he did the same thing where you kind of struggle, but eventually it'll be interesting to see where the future of that kind of stuff goes to it. But we're almost at the 2 hour mark here, so it's kind of the time for my favorite question, and it is, do you guys have an Andy Luck story that you can legally tell us?
Oh, I got one for you. This was my very first event working on a drift team for Chris Forsberg, 2014. They have the drivers meeting like underneath the little parking structure. I had literally met Chris Forsberg one time in my life. It was months prior at the SEMA show in 2013. Brian Wilkerson, who I, through a crazy series of events, he ended up working on the rallycross team that I was working on. He showed up. I'm like, hey, I'm Dylan. Hey, I'm Brian. What do you do? He's like, I'm Chris Forsberg's crew chief. I'm a massive drift fan. I'm like, oh my God, sweet. So I met Chris Forsberg, Vaughn, and Turk at Fremont Street in Las Vegas, 2013. First time I ever met him. So I get a phone call from Chris Forsberg. Hey, Brian says you're cool. You want to work on the car, on Castro's car in 2014 for Long Beach? Yep, sweet. So I flew down there. His wife at the time picked me up from the airport. I go to the track, just feeling everybody out. We're all new. We don't really know each other that well. And everybody goes to the driver's meeting. I was finishing up something on the car real quick. Okay, so everybody's walking down and I'm 50 feet behind him. Everybody walks right through. They all do the driver's meeting. And I go walking through there just to go stand with the team. And then he's like, are you a driver or a spotter? And I was had no idea who he was. I was like, no. He's like, get the fuck out. And I was like, okay, it's fine. That dude's a dick. So and then I'm just standing outside the fence. And I'm my whole team is right there. I'm same shirt, same everything. Yeah. And I'm just well, this is dumb, whatever. So he kind of walked away and I was sweet. So I walked back through again and I'm standing there next to the team and he comes up and taps me on the shoulder and he's just loses it on me. I told you you were Andy Luck style and just loses it on me and was just you're never coming to an FD event ever again. Go get your eyes. He's give me your hard card. You're never coming, you're done. You're out. You're going home. That's it. And I was I don't have my hard card on. I didn't even get my hard card yet. Didn't have it. And I did the full-blown walk of shame back to the truck and just waited for everybody to get out of the driver's meeting. And I was that's it. I'm never coming to a drift event ever again. I was this is the worst day of my life. I have never hated human beings so much in my entire life. I felt so raw. I'm just trying to be with the team. I just want to be a part of this. And he just motherfucked me for it. And, so Chris comes back from the driver's meeting and I'm almost in tears at this point. And I'm just dude, Andy just lost his some dude, some big Asian guy. I don't even know his name. He just lost his shit on me. And it was the worst thing of my life. And he was all right, let's go figure it out. So he pulls me with and he goes and finds Andy. And then Chris is what's up? This is Dylan, and he's well, I don't care. I told I told him it better not happen again. I'll just he's we walk away and I'm just this is the worst day of my life. And that was my very first interaction with Andy Luck. And now it was good. It was bad. I was I hadn't it was bad. It was really bad.
It's crazy how he can do that though.
Yeah. Dude. And now he's I don't cross him ever, obviously. I earned right. I got his respect or whatever. He has my respect that day. But he's a cool dude, but he's got he's got to do that job and somebody's got to do it and he's pretty good at it. So I learned that very, very quickly, my very, very first FD event ever. So, yeah, like I said, I don't even know if he'd remember it, honestly.
That's crazy.
I'm sure deep down he does. I'm sure somewhere all of these just have a little piece of his brain taken up.
He has a diary that he's just motherfuck that poor.
Ha ha. Just
I told his ass.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
So yeah, that was my very first encounter with Andy Luck.
That's not
So
bad.
many great stories with him.
He definitely has. He does it, I think, in a way to just show the rest of the class don't be dumb. Especially even over something. I don't want to say as dumb as that, but as silly as that.
Seemingly trivial. You're never gonna forget
it. Rules.
Exactly.
These are the rules. If you're gonna go over it, you're gonna get the wrath. And I was something as little as that. I was oh my God, this is the meanest human being on the planet for sure.
I've seen it multiple times for dudes in shorts going to the driver's meeting, and it's that ain't even hot yet. We are an hour from being hot.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
He is not having it. Like, holy shit.
No,
Yeah. But, good times. Well, not so good times, but makes for good stories afterwards.
exactly. It's good times looking back on it for sure.
Right.
But yeah, we have hit the 2 hour mark, guys, and I appreciate both you guys coming on. It's actually been a lot of fun having both of you here.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on with you, and where can they find you? The classic.
So many places, dude.
The usual, we got Dylan Hughes 129 on Instagram, Dylan Hughes 129 on YouTube.
Yep.
We got our own little shop account going. It's called Whip. I've been reposting some of their stories as of lately, so it's like some more behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the major social media platforms. I'm not really a TikTok guy. They started taking down all my videos for posting drifting content, saying it's against community guidelines and
dangerous content.
This app sucks.
I deal with that every day, dude.
YouTube stuff to follow along with your projects.
What's up?
YouTube to follow along with your projects.
Yeah, YouTube. I've been trying to put effort towards it. That's again a super tough one for me because I'm more of like a get it done type guy. But I started off the year good, doing a couple videos, walk arounds of the cars, and I'm gonna try and keep that rolling as best I can. I'm definitely no Adam LZ, but got some decent stuff on there.
No,
very good.
I'm excited. Herbie, Sara, what's going on with you guys?
Ladies first.
I'm drowning in 240s over here, man. And I got to do a quick little.
Yeah.
That's not a bad problem to have. That's my retirement savings out there. But
seriously,
I finally have all the parts for my 14, so I'm gonna see if I can get that restored in the next month of winter I have, and then I got to put some time in on the track car, or I won't be driving next season. So.
Yeah, dude. Good. Well, yeah, it sounds like you got to turn the heater on and buckle down and get some work done in the shop.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So,
Herbie, you got any
you
competitions?
Herb, any more comps?
Me, yeah, still at the end of this month, finally. I finally decided to practice last night. It's all right. It's kind of silly because they're 400 horsepower cars on the old Texas layout. So.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's definitely you just can't lift at all. I'm on the edge of running out of wheel speed and straightening, and if I do let off, then I just spin out because I'm, but if I go too, I don't know. It's not my favorite course right now. I'm not having a very good time, but I did dial it in. I got the car set up pretty decent last night and did more practice today earlier on. And yeah, but other than that, my number 9 question was just, Dylan, you're the best. Number 1.
Yeah.
Number 1, brother.
Yeah.
Again, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This is super cool.
Yeah, this is
you
cool.
guys are awesome. And yeah, thanks for having me on here off to the side. If anyone ever cancels and they're like, oh, last minute cancel, I'm too important for the shit, call me up. I'll fucking be on this thing.
Let's
he'll be
go.
All right, we'll hold you to that.
We'll talk shit on the person that canceled.
Let's
For
go.
Yeah,
no,
boys.
100%. No, thank you guys absolutely for coming on, and we'll be coming through the pits this year. We'll come say hi with the camera in your face, so don't worry.
Hey, I'd be mad if you didn't.
You know what? I can't resist